All right. Well, welcome to Teaching of Pronunciation. We are one of the many interest groups or IGs at CATESOL. We're tops. We're interested in research methodology and activities for helping English language learners of all ages improve their skills in listening, speaking, pronunciation, and overall oral communication. We invite you to join our group if you are not already a member. I'm Marsha Chan, the co-founder and co-coordinator of T.I.D.E, and I devoted over 3 decades of my academic career to Mission College in Santa Clara, California. I offer over 2,000 free videos on my YouTube channel as Pronunciation Doctor, and some useful learning materials at my company, Sunburst Media, one of the sponsors of this conference. My top co-coordinator for the past 2 years has been Jaydene Elvin of California State University at Fresno. She's a professor there and the TESOL coordinator, where she also coordinates the Fresno State's hub for language teaching and learning and directs the Act Like a Teacher program. In addition to training pre-service teachers in teacher performance and classroom management using acting techniques. Our top assistant coordinator is Randy Rightmire, a continuing lecturer and the acting director of the English for Multilingual Students program at the University of California in Santa Barbara. The theme of this conference is Riding the Tide, Transformation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Engagement. Our presentation aims to provide educators with a demonstration of activities that are designed to engage students of diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. The activities foster inclusive participation and are intended to help transform learners into better listeners and speakers. In our short time together, we will give you a taste of a selection of activities for advanced, intermediate, and beginning English learners. Now, strap on your safety belts and let's go catch some waves. Randy Rightmire will start us off with a selection of pronunciation activities for international teaching assistants.
Thank you, Marsha. Hi, everybody. I'm Randy Rightmire from UC Santa Barbara. And for my part, I'm going to give some advanced pronunciation activities based on my work with graduate students at UCSB. And most of our graduate students studying pronunciation are ITAs, International Teaching Assistants. And the assumptions go into this activity are my assumptions about grad students. They're very self-directed and self-motivated, and they can identify the high impact vocabulary in their area. When we meet for group meetings, they are graduate students from all different disciplines. And so I don't necessarily give them texts from their own discipline. They go out and they find their own text. That could be a word list or a paragraph or some sentences from their own field or from their own teachings. So they can apply pronunciation concepts that we're teaching to those texts that they bring to the class. Every week I might assign a different pronunciation concept, and then they go out and they show how that concept works in the words and sentences that they bring to the meeting. The grad students are really serious about this course. The stakes are high. Their teaching assistantship depends on it, which means their financial support. So they want fast results and they want more challenge. So they bring a lot to these group meetings. And in the next few slides, what I'm going to show you are some examples of the assignments that they've created for themselves using their own texts and marking them up in various ways. And Marsha, next slide, please. Okay, so for activity one, this is actually the background for the group activity. The assignment that they have to do is identify challenging words from their own area. They have to look up the word pronunciations or the stress patterns, depending on what emphasis we're doing that week. They have to create their own text or find their own example text, maybe by going to Wikipedia and looking up topics in their field. Marsha, next slide, please. So the first example, this is one of my students. The assignment was rhythm. And after creating a word list with challenging words, then for each word on his list, he created an example sentence. So here the word was equilibrium. And the example sentence is marked up with every stressed syllable highlighted and underlined in red ink. And then, because we were studying rhythm groups, he identified a group that was based on each stressed syllable. And, so we might tap or we might clap as we go through these example sentences. The entanglement with the radiated waves will then violate the equilibrium of the thermal system. So we would try to smooth out the rhythm of those taps and those claps. Next slide, please. For my next example, we were studying emphatic stress or contrastive stress. And so this student found a sentence and typed the sentence first in the regular way, and then underneath that, his own marked up version of that sentence. In this case, we were studying thought groups. And so he used the slash mark to divide the sentence into thought groups, every group centering around one key word. So the key word is bold-faced. That marked the end of a thought group or the focus of a thought group. And in addition to that, he used yellow highlighting to show how two opposite words were in contrast with each other. And we're going to use intonation to highlight those contrasts. So semiconductor devices can display a range of useful properties, such as passing current more easily in one direction than the other, showing variable resistance and sensitivity to light or heat. Next slide, please. Okay, so for this example, we worked on stress and intonation, and I introduced the students to some notation using capital letters like H for a high tone, L for a low tone, M means middle tone or medium, and then an X could be indiscriminate tone, any tone that doesn't really matter. So my student Shinlu, she created example sentences using keywords from her field, machine learning. And after the keyword, she found the stress pattern and she marked that using the notation. XXHL means machine learning with a high and low at the end of that phrase. So based on her keywords, she created an example sentence, and that's what's highlighted in yellow. She went a little further and marked it up for rhythmic groups and so on. And, she's made a couple of mistakes there, but in this case, I just let them go. And we'll go to the next slide, please. So finally, now that you've seen some examples of how students mark up their text, I will show how I developed this into an activity for the group meeting, and I call this round robin practice. After students have sent in their practice words or text, then I cut and pasted some snips from each student's homework onto PowerPoint slides. And after taking just a few lines from each homework onto a slide, then I would create 5 or 6 or 10 slides for each student, and I would end up with 50 or 60 slides for the whole class, but then I would shuffle them so that we have to go around and a student will see a few words from her homework and she'll read them out loud to the group and then go to the next student and the next student. And eventually it will come around to the first student again and circle around again. And if you're a student in this activity, your turn might come up 3 or 4 or 5 times as we go around. So in the next couple of slides, I'll just show you a few more examples of what students contributed to this and some tips for how I kind of facilitated the copying, pasting, and shuffling. So next slide, please. Okay, so here's an example. We worked on primary and secondary stress, and the student looked at words in an online dictionary, and she happened to prefer the dictionary that gives IPA symbols, and that's fine with me. I don't make students do this, but if they are familiar with IPA and they like this dictionary, then that's great. But to make it easier for myself, I just cut and pasted exactly the way she sent it in with no changes. You know, she had to do a word list of about 20 words, but I only took 5 at a time because this is round robin and her homework is going to get split up into 4 or 5 different slides. So next slide, please. Great. So for another group meeting, the emphasis was on intonation. And once again, we've got primary and secondary stress, but we've also got the H and L and other capital letters to indicate different tones. And here's an example that shows sometimes when a student makes a little mistake, I will go ahead and correct it. And you'll see that on the bottom line. My student Wenting, she made some mistakes and I crossed them out and I put in my correction and highlighted that in yellow. So her words were macroscopic, phenomena, superfluidity, superconductivity, and magnetoresistance. Next slide, please. Okay, and so for this final example, my student Monsij was working on full vowels and reduced vowels. I don't tell students how they should mark this up. I just let them do it in whatever way they like. And Monsij really wanted to use a lot of color. So my tip for everybody doing this is rather than copy and paste in the regular way that you would do for text, take a screenshot and then just paste an image onto a PowerPoint slide. That's what I did for this particular slide. His words were Rosenberg generator, ampacity, amplitude, autocorrelation, discrete time Fourier transform, and those were his words in the round robin activity. Next slide, please. Okay, so the last activity, what you'll see are of one-on-one sessions when I worked on students, and we recorded our Zoom sessions. I asked the students permission, can I share their video clips with teachers at this conference? And they said, yes, go for it. So what you'll see in each video clip, how students marked up their own text, and how they explained to me what they had done. And then you'll hear them read through their own text and maybe my comments to them. This gives you an example of the flexibility and freedom that I gave them when they're marking up their own text, but also how they applied their own creativity to marking up their own keywords and own sentences using the concepts that we focused on in the lesson.
The following introduces the basic concepts of classical mechanics. For simplicity, it often models real-world objects as a point particles, objects with negligible size. The motion of a point particle is characterized by a small number of parameters: its position, mass, and the forces applied to it. Each of these parameters is discussed in turn.
Okay, well, the grammar is perfect. I would only suggest that you also try to use more contractions. For example, you could try to rewrite that and repronounce that as I've. And yeah, you're exactly doing it right with do not changing to don't. I recommend that as well.
This contraction with have is difficult for me.
Well, maybe just try saying it as quickly as you can. I've put. That sounds perfect.
I've put considerable effort in my study of physics.
I think it's better. I think that's an improvement. Okay, great. So before you begin to read, can you tell me what's going on in number 1? You have 2 highlighted words. What are the issues there?
Oh, I just highlight the words with the pronunciation I need to care about, like the y and n.
Okay, so in the word measurements, we've got the combination of NTS. So that's an issue of final N, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about in reinforced? What's the issue there? The same thing?
It's the reinforced. It's the N after the N.
Okay. Let me also suggest you've got the word range.
Okay.
And then you've also got the word observations.
Yeah.
And evidence. Okay, so why don't you try number 1 and I'll listen and I'll give you some feedback.
Okay. Evidence of warming from air temperature measurements are reinforced with the right range of other observations.
Okay. Sounds pretty good. And you have highlighted some yellow and some green. What's going on there?
So yellow means the vowels in this word has short pronunciation, and green color means in this word its vowel sounds longer.
Right. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty good. I would have you change just one thing, and that is on the 3rd line, the word here. You can make that into a long sound. Just because it's an open syllable, by that I mean there's no consonant at all at the end, and it's a long vowel.
It's a long vowel?
Oh. Right. And one other change I would recommend. Yeah, go ahead and change that color now.
Mm-hmm.
Also on the 1st line, how about diode?
The diode?
Diode should be a long word. That's a verb, that's a vowel. Sorry, that's a word with 2 long vowels. Yeah, that looks great. Are you ready to try the whole sentence?
Okay, yeah. A diode is a marvelous device that passes current only in one direction. It's not necessary that a diode is made of semiconductor.
Sure, sounds good.
We over here concentrated about semiconductor diode alone.
Good. And so now I'll let Jaydene take over and talk about intermediate level activities.
Excellent. So I'm here, and I'll kind of go quickly so we can get through everyone, but I'm essentially here to bring the drama to the group. So as Marsha mentioned before, I love drama-based teaching, and so a lot of what I do with ESL students and with my future teachers is that drama-based teaching. And so I'm just going to show you 2 quick activities that you could potentially use in the classroom that could be useful for you. So Marsha, let's go to the next slide. So the first one that I'm going to introduce to you conveniently is called Introduce Your Partner in Character. So this is actually an icebreaker that you can use at the beginning just to set the tone of the class and what you're going to be expecting from them. You want to make sure the group's going to be on the right wavelength with you. So for me, when I'm, for example, doing teacher training, I'm telling them this is a drama course. So right from day one in those icebreakers, we're doing some drama things. And it really helps develop that group cohesion. You know, they start to feel a little bit more comfortable with each other, but with me and with each other as well. And so it's a great starting point just to get everyone comfy is basically what I feel about that. So let's go to the next slide. So this one in particular is a fun icebreaker that helps students to get to know each other, but they're also practicing their speaking skills and their dramatic skills, so to speak. So it's very similar to your typical let's interview a partner and find out some facts, but there's a twist to it. So what we do is I pair the students up and I ask them to answer some simple get to know you questions. And you can choose whatever questions that you want. I just choose some very simple ones that everyone can answer. And so once they've had a little bit of time to talk to each other and get those answers, when I bring them all back as a class, I actually have the students introduce their partner to the rest of the class, and then I tell them that there's a catch to it. So when you're introducing your partner, you have to introduce them as though you were a character that I then assign to you. So some people get assigned a cheerleader, a vampire, a king, or a queen, and so forth. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what I've put up here, again, I'm going to just go through those quickly because I want you to see a demonstration, but later on you can check these instructions for yourself. But what you would normally do, as I said, is start with that pairing and providing them with a handout, especially for lower level ESL students. Having that handout and allowing them to write down the answers will help them out a lot. They have a script to follow. For more advanced groups, I'm just like, have at it, and you have to remember this information. For my teacher trainers, it's the same thing. They just have their talk and then they come back. So some sample questions that I've used is, what is your favorite color? What's your favorite food? If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And so forth. Again, depending on the level of students, you can allow them as much or as a little time as they need. So I typically say 5 to 10 minutes. In more advanced groups and my teacher training groups, we allow them probably 2 to 3 is enough for that. So let's go to the next slide. So once they've had that time and you bring them back, you explain to them that how they're going to be introducing their partner to the class and the catch as well. One thing to make this easier for you is that you assign the characters before class, or you have those prepared. You want to choose ones that are easy to act out, ones that you know your students will actually know as well. So we don't want to, you know, I used to do an auctioneer, and so for ESL students, that became a little bit too difficult. So again, you want to go appropriate to the level. And so depending on the size of the class, you can assign individually, or when we've run this with a workshop of 50 people, we ended up assigning it by month as well. And so we just said, okay, those born in January are queens, February are vampires, and so on and so forth. And then you have them introduce their partner in character. Again, you can extend this as long as or as little as you like, depending on the amount of questions you're giving. In this case, I'm saying, you know, to take away those fears, 20 to 30 seconds of speaking, no more than a minute. It's just something simple and you encourage them. So let's see a sample demonstration from our friends Randy and Marsha. So I've asked them before, prior to this workshop, to answer the following questions. Let's see that pop up come up. There they are. So what's your favorite color, favorite food, and if you could go anywhere in the world. So they've already had their little chat. They've written down their answers. So now they've returned and they're going to introduce you guys, introduce their partner to the rest of the group. So let's start with Randy. So Randy, I would like you to introduce your partner to the rest of the group as though you were a sports announcer. Do you think you can do that for me?
Okay, Jaydene. Ladies and gentlemen, announcing my partner, Marsha Chan. Her favorite color is purple. Her favorite food, Chinese char siu. And her favorite country to go to, an African safari to see the elephants and the lions.
Woo! And then we kind of give a cheer to Randy, and usually the audience like get all excited too, and they do the fake woos and all of that. And then we go on to the next person. So Marsha, I would like you to introduce your partner as though you were a queen, like the Queen of England, for example. There she is.
My subjects, I'm very, very, very honored to present you the Duke of Rightmire. Sir Randall's favorite color is blue, the color of the beautiful sky. His favorite food is pizza, a most delightful dish of grand sustenance. He would love to spend time in Paris, where he'd climb the Eiffel Tower and behold the great lands of our huge royal empire.
Wonderful. And so Marsha's shown us a very wonderful example of how you can extend this activity. You can bring props and allow them to use different props. So that's the first activity. I'll ask Marsha to go to the next slide if she can for us, but I know you're also possibly getting changed out of your costume. But the next activity, so that's one. The next one that I want to talk about is PowerPoint karaoke. And again, I kind of have to go through it quickly because I know we've got to get to Marsha. But what happens in this, it's actually a fun, I think it's been used as a party game, a drinking game. I use it in ESL classes, but I mostly use it in my teacher training courses because I want them to learn to improvise and give good presentations, which is why it's useful for advanced speakers. So what happens is you give them a random set of slides with pictures, and they must deliver a short presentation based on that, no preparation. Obviously, you can adapt this a little bit for your learners and their level. So what happens is as each slide appears, they have to improvise and present the slide with that lack of preparation. So again, it's good for your intermediate and above. It's a fun way to practice presentation skills. So after you've had a little module on presentation, you can implement this. And so students learn not to rely on the words on the screen when giving presentations, which always makes it a little bit more engaging. And so it encourages them to think and speak on the spot. Let's go to the next slide. So again, here I've given some instructions. There's a really good blog post that you'll have on the PowerPoint that essentially tells you where you can, like, it tells you about how you can adapt this for ESL learning. But when you're doing it, you really want to make sure you're explaining and modeling the activity. Start out with maybe a word or something, a topic that's very easy, something they've been working on in class. You can have them do a group think aloud about how they would tackle each slide, and then you can let the students pick a topic they're comfortable with as well. Next slide. And so again, we do the short speaking times, 20 to 30 seconds, and increase the length as they get used to the activity. You can have students work in pairs to present. So again, it takes away some of that fear. Now for ESL classes, I recommend that you pre-prepare your own slides that are easy, but there is a website called Talk Generator where you type in the topic and it spits out some slides. The difficulty with that is that it spits out anything. So again, if I'm using that in an ESL class, there may be inappropriate things. There can be, like, you get what you get. So again, you would go back and edit those, change the pictures and things like that. But it's a good starting point. Or an extended activity is having the students create a slide for each other. So with my last little bit of time, I'm just going to play about 2 minutes of a video that shows 2 of my students doing this activity. So I want to point out that they are in a teacher training course. So they're studying to be teachers. They're not actually ESL students themselves. And the presentation that you're about to see, they have not seen it before. So everything that they're doing is improvised.
And so this is actually an aerial shot of the house we live in. So you can see the one that's dangerously close to the ocean. That's the one that we live in. So we actually have ocean views right outside our window. We're both looking at the same view as well. We prefer to zoom in. So this is kind of the tour of the outside of the house and the landscape around us.
So in my home or our home, we live with a dog. The dog's name is Tidal. Very feisty, very cute with the spots. You'll notice that Tidal is on some stairs. Yes, stairs. And the floor that Fido is on has tile, so it's not perfect. So Fido is on the stairs. Laura, did you want to take the next one?
Yeah, and this is all of our imaginary family and friends that we each envision. So you see there's a couple of kids, different age range, they're all on the ground. And then, sometimes we envision that there's grandparents there, that there's a nice plant in the corner. So that's why it's a drawing, because these people aren't actually real. It's just our imagination.
Was it there? So I recommend you watch that when you get a chance to open that link because it's quite funny. So there's a whole 6-minute video, but what you can see is, again, they haven't seen the slides. They're just going off whatever comes to their head. And even when that happened, I didn't necessarily say to present as though you're a teacher. It was just one of the reactions of one of the students was like, I'm going to go teacher mode and teach them about stairs. This is the stairs. And so forth. So that's a little bit from me. Happy to answer questions about that later, but let's have some time for Marsha.
Okay, all right. Now, some of you may think that those activities were a little bit high level for your students. So I'm going to tell you about teaching using total physical response, which probably you already know about. It's TPR, total physical response. It's especially helpful for beginning to intermediate ESL students of all ages, actually. And you know that through TPR, students develop understanding of words, sounds, and syntax by listening, by observing, and by acting before speaking and writing. TPR connects body movement with language retention, and it's a way to solidify and demonstrate comprehension. I'll show you how you can add a pronunciation twist to TPR instruction. Now, you know about prepositions, right? So prepositional phrases of location are often taught through pictures such as these. This one from the English for Childcare book shows the position of a ball in relation to a box. So the ball is on the box, in the box, under it, over it, in front of it, next to it, behind it, and so on. So you can expand upon these two-dimensional static image type with realia in the classroom and in front of your camera. So you can have your students bring certain objects. You can ask them or assign them to bring specific objects to class, or you can provide it depending on how big your class is or how much stuff you want to carry around with you. If you wish, you can choose minimal pairs, such as these items. What do you see here? A ball, a bowl, a cup, a cap, a pan, a fan, a pill, and a peel. Those are some minimal pairs, right? Now, depending on the level of your students, just the language level, the speed, and the number of repetitions. Now for this demo, because I've got some kind of advanced learners in here, some ringers, Jaydene and Randy. So I'll kind of do this in a more minimalist way, and Jaydene and Randy will be my students. So Jaydene and Randy, please listen and follow my directions. Have you got all your objects with you? Yeah? Okay, so we've got what things like a ball and a bowl, right? We've got a cap and we've got a cup. We've got a fan and a pan, and what else do we have? We have a pill and a peel. All right, good. So put the ball and the bowl on the table in front of you. Put the peel on the ball. Put the peel on the ball. Now you may have a banana peel or an orange peel or some other kind of a peel, right? Put the peel in the bowl. All right, my pill is in the bowl. Now take the bowl, the ball, the pill, and the peel off the table. And let's see, what should we try next? Let's try working with the pan. Okay, let's see. Put the pan, the fan, the cap, and the cup on the table in front of you. Now pick up the fan and put the fan under the cap. Put the fan under the cap. Show us. Oh, fan under the fan under the cap. Okay, good. Now pick up the cup. Put the cup next to the pan. The pan, the cup. The cup is next to the pan. All right. Now, let's say that we're going to put the fan in the pan, the cup, and blend all of these things. All right, let's see if we can use all of the 8 objects together and do something with each one of them. All right, so now put the pan, okay, we did that. I'm sorry, I'm moving. Now, we could use all the objects. Put the peel in the pan. Show me, peel in the pan. Put the cap on your head. You have a cap? Put the cap on your head. Got that one. Put the bowl over the fan. Oh, bowl. Pan or fan? Fan. Bowl over the fan. Put the pill under the cup. Ooh, here's my pill. Where's my cup? Okay, we could do it this way. We could do it because the pill is under the cup. Put the ball next to the pan. Ball or bowl? Ball. Put the ball next to the pan. Put the cap over the peel. Peel. Put the cap over the peel. Ooh, good. What good students we have here. So we can have a lot of different activities that we do with our pronunciation, words, and objects, and the prepositions of location. Now let's go on to another kind of activity. Now you know that intonation, along with stress and rhythm, is especially difficult for learners to acquire in a foreign language because it isn't codified in writing. You know, Judy Gilbert in 1978, in her article on gadgets, nonverbal tools for teaching pronunciation, taught us the value of using a kazoo to help students pay attention to intonation. If you haven't tried it yet, I welcome you to give it a go. Now you can find kazoos in your local party store and online party and music stores. Now I've got my purple one here, my green one here, and I would like to give that one to Jaydene and one to Randy, if I could only do so through the screen. Now suppose you don't have a kazoo. What can you use instead? Any ideas? Well, suppose you all have toilet paper. You can use your little toilet paper roll, or even a long one for towels. You can use, this came off of a wide tape. But if you have a kazoo, it's the best. So what can you do with this kazoo? Some of you may have seen a kazoo but not really learned how to use it. So here's a quick how to use kazoo lesson. You hold the kazoo horizontally, not vertically. Place the mouth on the wide end, not the narrow end. Hum, hum, into the kazoo. Don't blow. Do, 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 and make different types of sounds. I like to use do, 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 but you can also use hoo, hoo, hoo. And try to make them on different pitches. So you can create pitch with your humming. Because the humming vibrates a little piece inside here that makes it vibrate. You need to train your ear and help your students train their ears to hear the pitch changes. So depending on the level of your students, you will adjust the language complexity and the speed and the number of repetitions. And for my students, Randy and Jaydene, I'll do this more quickly. Randy and Jaydene, my students, are you ready to listen? All right, so we're going to do music pitch contours that you're going to hear by kazoo. So this example you can use with some little hints like So it's much easier to do when you're in a group together. But you may know from maybe doing music listening together, harder to do in remote. It's still possible. Let's try it with a dialogue. Can we sing a dialogue? Let's just look at this dialogue first of all. If we look at only in the intonation like this, it may be hard to follow. If we put it together with words, maybe we'll get it even better. So like let's try my green one. We've met before. Pardon?
Pardon?
I met you at the conference a year ago.
I met you at the conference a year ago.
Right, we have met.
Do.
You look familiar too.
Do. You look familiar too.
Let's say that Randy and Jaydene are going to take turns on just the kazoo part. Randy, would you start? Just the kazoo part. Yeah. And then Jaydene. Ooh, okay, so we can do quite a lot with a kazoo, but here I'd like to show you an example where students who all have kazoos. We can also use the kazoo, the sound of the language without the actual music. So how do we do that? We'll go back to the list. We practice with clapping. We practice with rubber bands. And now we're going to work on pitch change. To emphasize pitch change, high, low, high, low, high, low, pitch change on the same words, we could do it like this. English, 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 English,
English, English, English.
Good. Now we also do instructor, 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 instructor. All right, very nice, okay? Curriculum, curriculum. All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to stop there, but when you come back to it from the handout that we have and the slides, you're welcome to watch. We can also use the kazoo to emphasize the sound of. I'd like to give you an opportunity to give us your comments and questions. And here's a way for you to contact us through our email afterwards.
And
we're waiting you now.
Sorry. There's still a little bit of a delay, but I want to point out that it's now 4 o'clock, but there is a question that someone wrote. So I can read the question. It says, I assume that after listening part of TPR, where the students listening and follow the instructions, you have the students give the instructions, right?
Much you can do with TPR. And so one of the things is for the listening and acting. Another is for repeating or creating the model sentences that you give them. And another is for them to work with each other to give commands that they know about and that their fellow students can then perform with or without oral language. Thank you for that question.
Amy's comment that goes to all three of us. Thank you. We enjoy that. But yeah, just a reminder, Marsha has uploaded the slides so that you guys can access that. If you